slept with his cousin at our family reunion. My husband's revenge tore both families apart. I slept with him. I slept with my husband's cousin at our family reunion. And he caught us. No, he caught us naked and having sex right in the bathroom meant for guests. And my husband's revenge tore our families badly apart. I didn't think we would get caught. It was just a little adventure, something my husband never did. He was the safe type, and typically the boring type for me. He was never one to try and have sex anywhere else other than the bedroom on the bed. He wasn't exciting or thrilling like his cousin Brad was, and I thought after 10 years of being married, I deserved some sort of fun. No, I needed it, and the closest person who came close to giving me the excitement that I craved was him. Brad and I were never even close up until 2 months ago when he came to live in our house. He was just his distant cousin that somehow just came into the picture when they were all grown. In fact, Dave, my husband, was never comfortable with him, but he merely tolerated him because he was family. But I figured that wasn't the truth. Dave never liked Brad because he represented that he never was and never will be. Brad was fun, exciting, he loved adventure and doing dangerous things. He made sex enjoyable and not like a chore or something needed for procreation. Before I ever met Brad at all, my first and only boyfriend had been Dave. We grew up together because our families were closely knitted, our mothers being best friends right from childhood too, and up until now. Not sure if they're still friends from the recent happenings in our family, but Dave and I literally grew up together running around in boxers and panties individually, and then gradually becoming self-aware teenagers, and then adults. We literally lived our parents' dream for them. We had always been treated like we were meant for each other, and inevitably that is what we grew up to believe. We got married before I could graduate university, and we've been together ever since. I even had our first child during my final year of school, but my mother helped with her until eventually after graduation, and Dave and I decided to move away from our small town into the big city just to get a proper job. I became a housewife and a mother at the age of 22, and I had never known any other life since then. I was expected to be happy and satisfied with what I had. Dave was a good husband. He provided for our family, did his duties as a husband and a father by spending quality time with us, and he tried his best to keep our family afloat. But instead of being satisfied and happy, I wasn't. Seeing girls my age not saddled with a baby and having a boyfriend at that age looked more interesting than my monotonous life, especially Sally, who became my best friend and my second child's godmother. I was so jealous of Sally because she was living my dream life. She had a job that paid well, a boyfriend that knew exactly how to leave her in high spirits when they had sex, and no kids to take care of. I knew all these because she told them to me, envying the stability my life supposedly had, and she didn't. I never told Sally how hearing about her life made me want to throw caution in the wind and do something crazy. She had always seen me as the most stable amongst her friends, and I wanted to keep that image desperately, so maybe I'd believe it if I kept getting told daily. But I never did. I didn't like how Dave never attempted anything new besides what we already knew. We were both each other's first sexual partners, and once we found our way around it, we just literally stuck to doing it that way. There was no hot sex on the couch or against the bathroom wall while the shower was running or even in the kitchen while I'm cooking. Dave was pretty cautious, especially when it came to the image we projected in front of the kids, so the 2 times I had suggested having sex in weird places, it ended up wrongly and it never felt right. Dave was busy looking over his shoulders in case one of the kids walked right into the kitchen, which they did when they woke up in the morning. The other time, Catherine had almost caught us having sex against the wall, and Dave had not been exactly comfortable with us getting down and dirty after the first 2 incidents. So I just maintained our usual bedtime routine when the kids were out like light. Sex hadn't become enjoyable until I met Brad. He showed me exciting things about sex that I never knew before. Brad had shown up one day claiming to be Dave's cousin from his paternal side, and after loads of confirmation and family tracing, they discovered it was true. Brad asked to stay a while with us while he gathered himself. Dave's family were apparently the only surviving family he had left, and Dave had allowed him to, only because he didn't have any other choice. We were the only ones who lived in the bigger part of town and had 4 rooms, that is, an extra spare room for Brad to stay. The crazy thing is, Brad lived with us for a whole year, and there was nothing exciting that happened between us. We barely spoke to each other than exchanging pleasantries, and while we had dinner, Brad would speak freely about the things he was doing, a new hobby, a girl he met, which Dave eventually banned because of the kids, something or anything. Brad was always talking, and he was also an easy flirt. I had seen girls fall in love with him countless times within that space of 1 year, including Sally, my son's godmother. He never brought his conquest home, though, because of the strict warning from Dave. He was always doing that outside, but it didn't stop the gossip from reaching me via Sally. She spoke so highly about his sexual prowess so much that I started to imagine exactly how good he would be. I had limited knowledge, so my mind couldn't exactly process exactly what it was. And I guess you could say I allowed my curiosity to get the best of me. Brad hadn't tried in the beginning to seduce me. I did all the work myself, and it was quite easy, especially because when Dave went to work, he would take the kids along and drop them off at school and pick them up later too. My main job has always been cooking and preparing them for school, so it was quite easy to carry out my master plan of having sex with Brad. So I first started dressing in tighter clothes that revealed my large breasts gotten from breastfeeding 2 kids, and shorts that barely covered my thigh. I started calling him to help me out in the kitchen, which I never did before. He was also surprised when I suddenly started needing help opening drawers or fixing equipment that needed no fixing initially, but had when I tweaked a few things on it. I knew he noticed me because I saw the way his eyes would follow my breast when I bent to pick up something, or how he would quickly look away when I caught him staring. It didn't take long after that before Brad and I started having sex. I gave up the act that morning, being so sexually frustrated after a sleepless night beside Dave, who slept soundly after pleading too tired from work to have sex. And I went to him after Dave and the kids left the house. I went to him stark naked, and Brad was so shocked. I begged him to have sex with me, and after a few kisses here and there, Brad was more than willing. My first time with him hadn't been on a bed as I expected, since we both were in the bedroom already. It had been against the wall, and I loved every feeling of it. It was exciting and rewarding. I was like a child who had wanted extra toppings on her ice cream and finally got it. Brad did know what he was doing. The sex had been quick, and I was having an orgasm faster than I had ever had with Dave. I was even so happy, and thanked him with a kiss before going back to my room to clean up. Far from feeling guilty, I felt alive for the first time after having sex. I finally could understand exactly what Sally had described as wild sex, and I knew after that first time that I wasn't stopping there. So every day after Dave and the kids had left, I spent my day learning and unlearning things about sex. We had sex everywhere, and by everywhere, I meant everywhere. The shower, the bathtub, the kitchen, the couch in the living room, on the ground, against the wall. It was like rewatching 50 Shades of Grey. Only I was the one those things were happening to. I even stopped sleeping completely with Dave. At first, I did try to, but sleeping with him became very unsatisfying, and I would even seek Brad out in the dead of the night while Dave was deep asleep. So eventually I stopped, giving different excuses which Dave didn't actually object to. I bought birth control pills again because I didn't want to get pregnant, and I was starting to prefer the sex without condoms even more. Dave had seen the drugs, and when he asked why, I told him I didn't want any more kids, and I just wanted to be assured that it wouldn't happen, so I just bought the pills, just in case we forgot to use protection. Dave had no reason not to believe me, so he just went along with what I said. I guess being each other's first lover and only lover until then was enough assurance and made him trust me completely. He didn't know I was having a wild affair with his cousin, and I guess he would never have known or suspected anything if he hadn't seen us that day. At the time, I was having too much fun and getting very confident that Dave was never going to catch on, so sometimes we would sneak around and have sex, even with Dave inside the house. Yes, I became that bold. I guess living that long with Dave also made him predictable to me. I knew how long he would usually spend at his study every Saturday before going up to see the kids, and spend some time with them in their rooms asking how their week went. I knew he would only come downstairs around a certain time, so that gave me enough time to bend over the kitchen sink, each of my hands grabbing the sides of the sink while Brad slammed into me from behind. Another time had been when I sneaked into his room and into his bathroom while he was having a shower, just because I was too horny to wait for Dave to leave the house. It was just all really thrilling until it just wasn't. The first person who caught us had been Sally. I had no idea she would show up randomly at my house that morning after Dave and the kids were out as usual. I forgot to lock the door in my haste to have sex with Brad, who pushed me up against the couch and tore open my shorts while I fumbled with his in haste. Sally had walked in without ringing the doorbell, seeing the open door, and had met us that way. It didn't matter that I was covering up quickly after I noticed her standing there looking at us in shock, and that Brad quickly left the room. She had seen enough to understand what was happening. Sally was really disappointed and just left, but not before calling me a greedy and selfish woman, and had told me she hoped I stopped before I got caught. I dismissed her words because I felt it was because she was pained that Brad had stopped calling her or taking her calls, which was probably the reason she was at my house in the first place. Instead of feeling scared that she might go to my husband with that piece of information about my affair, I was feeling rather confident and proud of myself for being able to steal Brad's attention long enough to make him forget other girls. I was more invested in the process after that, being a willing learner who wanted to learn everything possible about sex. But I realized that nothing lasts forever, especially when it's something bad and shouldn't even have existed in the first place. It was Thanksgiving soon, and my mother-in-law had called everyone in the family to gather around like we did yearly for both families' reunions. It was also her birthday and her husband's death anniversary, so she was always trying to gather everyone around so she didn't have to feel lonely on that day. And besides, ever since we moved to the city, we hardly went home because of how busy Dave always was, even on most weekends. Then we didn't want to disrupt the kids' school, so we always waited until the holidays to go home. And not that we needed any reminder, we always planned it every time, and the kids were always super excited to go see their grandparents too. Brad had been invited this year too, because he was of course a family member, and so we all traveled together home. It was an 8-hour journey, so we packed everything we would need to make the journey down home. I stayed with my mother-in-law in their house, of course, because my parents' house was quite small, and it was only right that I did. Although over the years I started alternating between both houses, even though they were only a stone's throw away from each other. The house was beaming with people, but the ones I knew and the ones I didn't. It seemed that Dave's mother wanted to have more people over that Thanksgiving, and my parents' house was no exception. There were aunties and uncles I hadn't seen in years, some that I have never met before, and their kids and even grandkids. We had to take dinner and lunch outside the large compound because there were more spaces outside than inside. Everywhere was filled with people, and it gave Brad and I no time to even see each other. Because we arrived some days before Thanksgiving, I had to join my mother-in-law in shopping for ingredients for the food we were making, and also for basic things to make everyone comfortable in their allocated spaces around the house. I barely had any time to see Brad, who was basically treated like an outcast, because he wasn't exactly known to the family. He just literally stayed on the edge of everything, looking so out of place with his own family, but there was barely any time for me to see him privately and help him soothe his obvious wounds of being unaccepted. But that chance had finally showed up on Thanksgiving Day, when everyone was around eating and discussing as a loud, happy family. I noticed when Brad made eye contact with me and turned his head in the direction of the house. He wanted me to go into the house with him, and when he stood up and left without anyone noticing he did, I waited some 5 minutes before giving an excuse of getting more ice for the drinks. No one paid attention to me either, so I thought that I was safe. I went to Brad, and he immediately started to kiss me, saying things like he misses me, but I was too scared. Anyone could walk in, and his room was literally by the doorway so anyone could hear us, so I decided to make an improvisation. I knew that the guest room toilet was out of use because it had some leakage issues, so everyone used the bathroom upstairs instead. So I suggested we went there, because there was no one who would think to look for us there, and immediately we safely made our way inside the bathroom, thinking we weren't being followed. Brad pushed me against the bathroom wall, not even careful that he could dislodge my ribs from the hard surface. He removed my panties quickly, and then we were having sex while I was trying to cover my mouth in an attempt to avoid moaning out loud. But I realized only too late how even if I hadn't, I would have still gotten caught. Because Dave had seen the weird eye contact between Brad and I, and saw how we both quickly escaped into the house. And when he followed us, he had seen us enter into the bathroom, and by the time he mustered the courage to open the door, Brad was deep inside me, and I was using my fingers to hold him even closer. I was so shocked when I saw Dave, and when he looked from me to Brad in shock, I saw how his face morphed from shock to pure anger mixed with another emotion that I cannot even name. He didn't wait for us to disentangle, and he just turned on his heels and left. In my attempt to quickly remove myself from Brad, I fell awkwardly because of the way he held me against the wall initially, but I didn't mind that. I didn't even bother about my panties, which had been flung carelessly across the floor in our attempt to have quick sex. I quickly ran after Dave to do only God knows what. To beg? Or maybe to plead with him not to say anything to anyone until we were safely alone. But apparently God had no plans of listening to my prayers because immediately I stepped out of the house into the compound. Dave had looked at me angrily and yelled, "How long?" It was the first time in my life hearing Dave raise his voice at me. He was never a person to shout or do something really unreasonable when he was angry, but I guess this time was different. I couldn't lie or try to deny that I didn't know what he was talking about. By now, everyone was looking at us silently, wondering what was going on. I told him that it had only been a month, but when I tried to explain further, he put his hand up to silence me. Brad had appeared a minute later, and when Dave saw him, he went to him immediately, hitting him on the face. I was as shocked as everybody else witnessing the scene. We all knew Dave to be a nonviolent person, and seeing him that way just brought tears into my eyes. Dave swore and told Brad he didn't want to ever see him again, or he would end up in prison with attempted murder or murder itself if he did. Brad, who was now bleeding profusely from his nose and lips, which was becoming twice its size so fast, quickly ran away, leaving only me to deal with the wrath of Dave's anger. When Dave finally faced me, he asked me to explain to everyone what I had done and why he was so angry. I kept pleading with him with my eyes not to expose me, but Dave didn't even pity me. He told the whole family the exact scenario he had found when he went in to look for me after I announced that I was supposedly bringing more ice. My mother gasped loudly and reached for me, asking me if what Dave was saying was true. I only kept crying and couldn't utter a word while Dave kept looking at me in anger and perhaps disgust. My mom had slapped me right across the face when I wouldn't deny the accusation, and then she had started crying, cursing me. My dad and siblings dragged her away to their house without saying anything to me. My aunts, uncles, and everybody else just started leaving, but not without throwing shades at me for being so rotten to have brought my affair right under my husband's nose into his parents' home. My whole family left, leaving me to face Dave and his family. His mom, who had always treated me like her own child, had tried to reach me, and probably would have done and did the exact same thing my mom had done if she wasn't restricted. Dave told me to pack my things and leave, and that he never wanted to see me again, not even around our kids. He wanted me as far away as possible. It was only when he mentioned the kids I saw Catherine hiding behind one of her grand aunties, and there were tears on her face. Nothing horrified me as much as seeing my 9-year-old daughter knowing the sins of her mother and watching me being punished for it. Dave must have finally noticed the kids because he took them with him and he just left. He left me there with the rest of his families who were willing to tear out my flesh with their looks of disgust and whispers. One of them had even called me a slut right there. It wasn't that I couldn't have run away, but I just couldn't. I stood rooted to that spot because my head had no idea what to process exactly. It was only when Dave's mother had come at me again, asking angrily what I thought I was still doing standing in her home, that I was able to eventually get my legs to function again. I left their place and carried my heavy legs to my parents' place. And as expected, they didn't even open the door no matter how long I stayed outside crying my heart out. After 2 hours of staying there, the door had opened, but only because my mother had taken some dirty water with her and poured it on me, threatening to do more if I didn't leave. I had no choice but to leave. I had nowhere else to go but back home. I took a public bus, which was cheap, but at the same time uncomfortable. The journey took an extra 3 hours before I finally got to my destination, and when I did, it was already nighttime. I knew Dave had gotten home with the kids because his car was parked right outside. I tried to go in, entering the same lock code I was used to for years already, but the door wouldn't budge. I tried again and again, but the same thing kept happening. Dave had changed the locks. I tried the doorbell, but it just rang and rang from the numerous times I kept hitting it, but no one answered me. Dave wouldn't open the door, and he wouldn't let me in. He meant what he said when he said he wanted nothing to do with me. I had to pass the night at Sally's place, who had only taken me in for the night and made me promise to leave in the morning. She didn't pity me. not while I recounted the story of how my stupidity has now caused me my whole life. She only listened to me ramble and cry and regret how everything had played out. I knew she didn't feel sorry for me when the next morning came and she came to the room she gave me to sleep in for the night and had asked me to leave. Having nowhere else to go, I rented out a motel, and then I went back home, in another desperate attempt to beg Dave for forgiveness. But Dave would still not open the door to let me in, or even let me see the kids. Eventually, when it was the third day of me coming back to the house to apologize, even though I knew it was in vain, I met my luggages outside sitting in the garage. It dawned on me then exactly how ruined I was, and guys, I really regret the things I did and the solution I gave to my problems. I know I'm supposed to suffer greatly for what I've done, and I will. I swear I will, but please help me. I do not mind Dave having to forgive me for the rest of our lives together. I do not mind that I will have to repent of my sins and face Dave's mistrust and judgment every time he sees me. So long I'm in his life again, so long I get to be my children's mother again, so long I get to have this torturous punishment still being able to tag along in their lives. I know I'm not worth it, but please guys, I really have no life meaning without them in my life. Please, update. Hello Reddits. It's been the toughest 1 month of my life. I thought that with time, everything was going to get better, and perhaps everyone would be able to look past my sins and move on, and even perhaps try to forgive me. They've moved on quite all right, but that is without me in the picture. I've had to wake up several times in the night every day now from the vivid, horrible dreams I keep having of that horrible day Dave had caught Brad and I together. I wake up with tears, and I sleep in them every day now. It doesn't help matters that the divorce letter from Dave arrived yesterday in the mailbox. I haven't been able to bring myself to open the letter knowing exactly what is in it. It feels so final, the end of my life. I have never had to know another meaning besides being Dave's wife and also my children's mom for a whole 10 years. Forced to live this different version of my life in pain and regrets because of the choices I had made is so painful. I wish now that I had thought this far before. If I had known what life would be for me before I even got the idea into my head of sleeping with Brad, then I never would have even thought of it. I would have stayed as far as was possible away from him. Now that I have nothing but time and silence and my constant company of loneliness to fully comprehend everything I have done, I realize just how stupid my choices really were. I could have done things differently. I could have tried to talk to Dave about it. Dave had never given me an impression that he wasn't willing for a change. He had even been willing to try sex in different places, other than the bedroom twice, because I suggested it even though it was uncomfortable for him. It should have shown me a man who was ready to bend his rules and policies for our marriage to work. It should have made me an understanding wife. I could have easily suggested going on couple therapies together. I could have easily suggested going on trips and rediscovering things we loved about ourselves. There were so many things I could have done to prevent this, but I had chosen what I thought was the easy way out, but eventually had turned to be the easy way out of the life I've always known, and out of my marriage without my kids. The thought that I will never get to see them again just breaks my heart over and over again. I still cannot imagine a lifetime without being Dave's wife and a mother to my kids. It sounds so painful and it feels so dreadful. This last month where I have had to rent out an apartment which feels as empty as my heart, because there were no pictures of Dave and I and the kids hanging around in every space available on the wall. There were no awards of the kids which Dave had built a shelf to stack in for. There were no sloppy childish drawings of theirs hanging around on my fridge to remind me how sweet it was watching them grow. Everything feels so empty and hollow. I keep remembering the look on Dave's face that day and how my daughter had been crying watching everything unfold. She must hate me now. Maybe not as much as her father does now, but would probably hate me more in the future because of the stupid thing I had done. She will never want a relationship with me when she's grown up, because I was absent from her life, especially as a teenager who would need her mom more than anyone. All the promises of teaching her how to cook when she reaches the age of 10. All the promises of being there when she got her first period. All the promises of being a proud mother watching her daughter take the stage when she eventually became the best graduating student in medicine. Everything is all out of the window because I had thought of a foolish decision as a wise one. The thought that Dave would eventually move on and perhaps find someone new is also so devastating, and I keep torturing myself every day with the image. perhaps a taller woman with a slim waist, one who had never had a thick waistline because she has no kids of her own. She will probably be so beautiful that Dave, who is healing from my betrayal, will fall right into her laps, rightfully so. She will probably show my kids so much love they will forget about me in a year. They all will. My picture's probably taken down from the wall and replaced with the ones that had her in it. And every memory of mine is erased from their minds because she will replace them with beautiful memories. It hurts so badly just thinking about it, and I do so every day, trying to break myself even further, trying to self-destruct even more. I go to bed every night wishing desperately that I will wake up back in my familiar bed with my husband beside me and the regular everyday alarm waking us both up. And then Dave would kiss me good morning, and we both would go wake up the kids, and while Dave helped them prepare for school, I took their breakfast. I wish I would just wake up, and that life that I only thought of as normal and not a privilege will be mine again. But it's impossible, isn't it? You guys obviously think that too if your cruel comments are anything to go by. Expected, but still as shocking as how you guys read only the affair part and judge me wickedly for it. You refuse to see my desperation. You've refused to see my sincere repentance and how badly I wanted and still want to right my wrongs if given the chance to. My life is slowly but rapidly turning into a life that I had never imagined for myself before, and it hurts really badly just knowing that this may continue to be it. This life that is my life right now may continue to be it forever. Update. Hello Reddits, it's me again, and I know many of you think I should never make a post again, or probably continue rotting in the hell that is my life now without coming online to say it. You're probably right. I should do that, and that's why this is my final post here. I just felt the need to say these things. There's no one in my life willing to listen to them, and they just keep eating deeply into my heart. Crazily, it's not like typing it out here makes it any better. I finally signed the divorce papers. I did it not because I wanted to let go of Dave, but because I know there's no choice stalling, and I know that going to court would only make Dave add the custody lawsuit to the list, so I signed it and begged for the chance to see the kids once in a while. Although since the first time I tried, and the kids, especially my daughter, had refused to see me, I haven't tried again. There was no point. I realized that going back there every day will still not get her to want to see me because of the horrible image I had imprinted on her mind of me at that very young age, and words can really not encompass how much I regret what I had done. Now I have to live knowing that my children will never see me as their mother. They hate me and will continue doing so because I have done more harm than good. I've tried so severally to reach out to my own parents, but I still got the same answer as I had gotten the day my secrets were exposed to the whole family. They still think of me as a disgrace and want nothing to do with me. And as much as I understand that, if I had someone else and not me doing the shitty things I did, I would probably never accept the person's apology too and accept the person back. But it still doesn't make it any less painful that the people I've been used to my whole life now treat me like an outcast. It's so sad knowing that I've finally ruined my life for something as cheap as sex. Funny how the person who had been a willing participant of this life-ruining process has now disappeared into thin air. He never even called once to ask how I'm surviving or living after the whole thing got exposed. To think I sacrificed my lifetime for a coward like him is really sad. I wish I could undo meeting him or ever thinking he was man enough all because he was good at spontaneous sex. But the truth is, he was never as manly as Dave is, and he will never be. At a young age with a young wife and young kids, Dave had managed to keep our family afloat without me working to help out. He managed to make a comfortable life for us without any external help, and he managed to create that sense of stability that I seem to have shaken with my horrible behavior now. And instead of seeing all of those admirable qualities, all I had seen was the lack of sexual prowess. Instead of appreciating and looking for ways to be everything a man with those admirable qualities would want in a wife, I had chosen to walk the opposite path, and now I'm suffering greatly from the wrong path I had chosen. I know I've said several times in my post how much I wish I could change things, but it doesn't matter how many times I wish for things to change or wish my way out of this situation, I will never be able to get past this. I will continue to be this sad, miserable, divorced, and lonely woman who has so many regrets and has no hopes for the future because I had dashed every single one of them. I sure hope that regardless how much you guys hate me, that no one will decide to end up like me Because if all of these is not enough to warn you off, then you're as doomed as I am for life. Goodbye, guys.